And again, like, I've heard, like I said, I've traveled a lot too. And I think where it gets to why he thinks that way versus why a German who's like average worker thinks that no, German is better, right? I would argue right now, hell no. But like I'm talking about like 10, 15 years ago, right? Like, again, I think the US gives you the opportunity to be that 1% if you wanted to. Well, not if you wanted to, but you have the capability. If you're a little bit sociopathic, if you're like, if you got all the right things, like a cocktail, then you can probably get there. Other countries cannot give you that. And I would argue the reason they can't give you that are partially our fault too in the US.
Well, how do you mean?
I mean, we overthrow and, the democratically elected leaders, we cause chaos in the world. Like we are the #1 terrorist of the world, no doubt about that. And the reason these countries are authoritarian is because they have to be. Because otherwise they're going to go in a coup or a baton or something like that, up there. I'm not going to talk about what happened to certain people, but like Gaddafi or others, right? And they know. And that's something that no one talks about. Like, I'll give you a quick example of country of Georgia. Country of Georgia is the most peaceful. Like, and I can talk about it because I'm from, like I said, I was born in Georgia. I know what it's about. Look at its history and tell me if they ever tried to conquer anyone, really.
Ever tried to conquer somebody?
Yeah, conquer somebody. Yeah. No, they are like, they've been conquered a gazillion times. They won the wars. Like, they lost the wars. Like, I mean, these people have been through everything, really. It's fascinating, like how they are still alive, how they managed to like have the gene they had, like this coding, right? Like without mixing it with that. Like it's incredible. But here's what happened just recently. So we are using Ukraine as a proxy, right? Like we are fighting through Ukraine, this war with Russia, so that we can weaken Russia and the usual warmonger shit that I'm so over and tired. Then we have the CIA working really hard to overthrow Georgian government who says, I'm not going to get into war. It's not my war. Leave me alone. They threatened the Premier Minister of Georgia. And this is like EU and the US and Brits, right? Remember what happened to Fico? Fico got shot. Like, stay in line, bro, or you will be dead.
This is on record that they've done this?
He came out and says they threatened to kill me. They told me, remember what happened to Fico? This is a country focused on Georgia. Like, this government is focused on Georgia. They're like, we want to be great. We want to do all these good things, like, reforming education, all of that. What do you want, bro? Like, what do you want to cause a mess there? See, that's what we do. That's what we did in Latin America. Like what? I killed Jose Ruldos or something. Like, we go in, we overthrow people. Like what happened to Mossadegh in Iran? Why kill a democratically elected leader that only wants to do good shit for his country? What's the deal?
Well, define good shit for his country.
Well, he wanted to nationalize stuff that meant that it would be good for the country, like oil and other things. And we didn't
nationalize it?
Yeah.
I mean, that's...
Like, so here's what we do. Let me explain something.
Yeah, that would be fascist by definition.
So when CIA goes into the countries, they do something called, like, they want to do privatization of the assets, right? And they usually put it in the hands of very few people in the country. And the people that they can control. They did the same thing with Saakashvili in Georgia, like 2003 Rose Revolution. So they own everything, right? Well, how is that good for the country? When your biggest assets don't belong to people. How is that good for the country?
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
But the opposite doesn't necessarily, that's not necessarily good either. Like so let me say, hold two thoughts at the same time. Imagine that.
Right.
I think the current Iranian regime is fucking insane.
Who brought them on?
And a disaster.
Who brought them on?
Hold on. I also think we shouldn't be in any way going out of our way to start a war and overthrow their government, which is just playing right into the hands of the propaganda that wouldn't then be propaganda because it'd be exactly what it looks like, that would make people say, well, maybe this isn't so bad. If you really believe that something is wrong, and I do, like the Iranian people don't like their government, I agree with them on that, they're going to have to overthrow it themselves or do it themselves.
Couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. That's exactly what I'm trying to say here. But we don't allow that, though. Here's the thing. We don't even overthrow, per se, the dictatorial governments. Somehow, the record is sometimes we do. But if you look at the record of the overthrows that we know about, there are probably plenty we don't know about. But the ones that we know about, I mean, most of them are people who just said, I'm not going to be your puppet. I'm going to do something for my country. You might want to read a book called...
Economic Hitman.
Yes.
I saw where you're going with that.
Yeah, so like, but it's true though. He's absolutely right. And how do you think that goes down in international politics? And here's what people don't understand. Everything you do in other countries backfires and comes back to you. Like, international policies are very much like a boomerang to our domestic policies, right? Yes. I'll explain something. So, foreign countries, how do you think they lobby us into action? Like, tell me your opinion, and then we can take it from there. Like, why do you think that other countries do have an effect on our Congress or Senate?
I would imagine, if I'm being very broad with my answer, where it's economically feasible for us to continue our, ability to wield power economically and therefore just in general around the world, then we'll look at it, even if it's actually not going to help with that. We just convince ourselves it does.
So you're saying that, like, foreign countries lobby you to, help me understand, foreign countries lobby you to, like, keep the power overseas? Like that?
They lobby you in a way that makes you think, oh...
you have power over us and we'll do whatever you want? Is that what it is?
No. Because there's a lot of different countries that could be used as an example for this in different contexts. What I'm trying is, I want to be clear so that people, I'm not convoluting people out here. I'm saying that our bureaucracy is so high on its own supply that when another country, which is fucking every country around the world at some point asking for a favor.
Couldn't agree more.
Minus, probably like China and Russia. But like, when another country comes to us asking for a favor, we look at it like fresh meat, like, ooh, what can we get out of that? And how can we actually like advance our economic interests around the world, even if that's not how it's going to end up going down? That's what I mean.
Right. Yeah. I agree. So I can tell you one example. For example, just recently, again, like I'm only using Georgia as an example because I know what's going on. It's like one of my forte, like my topics. I can use Russia. I can use Israel if you want. But Israel and Palestine was never my thing as a journalist, so I usually stay away, even though I have pretty strong opinions about that too. But recently, country of Georgia put up this like news article, and then they had like a, I think, short segment in the Imedi TV, I think, where they were saying that opposition party, which is Saakashvili, which was a puppet for the CIA, Saakashvili's national party. We can talk about that too. Like, that guy is incredibly interesting. Like, the guy who was involved in both Georgian Revolution, and then I would argue that he was a huge figure to what happened to Ukraine, like a big player in that too. Now he's in prison, by the way, for the crimes he did with the CIA or without them. I don't care. But anyway, so they put up an article how this party transfers money to a firm in the US that lobbies Joe Wilson, like to do whatever they want. So put up, if you can, go to my X account, and there's an article about it. So, and then in return,
your X account is wild. I'll read through it. I need to get a shower afterwards. Oh, fuck.
So, like, I can tell you, I put this article up. I was like, they are so going to come after me after this. I don't care. So go to articles or just go down, and it's called...
when did you post it?
It's way down. Go down.
Like September?
Yeah, I think so.
What was the article about?
I think it's called An Agent, or like... it was about Joe Wilson and taking the money from this firm. Hold on. It's going to be there. There, Foreign Agent. Yeah, open that. Okay. So in here, I explain. In here I explain how the whole thing went down. What was the firm that got the money, and then lobbied Joe Wilson to be like pretty much like say lies like Georgian government stopped building Trump Tower in Batumi. What? Never happened. Like, and the guy supports the people protesting in the streets against government. So people who want to overthrow the government, he supports them in what they do, which is like they broke everything in the city. They went in and tried to like ambush, if I correctly recall, they tried to break into presidential residence. And this is Joe Wilson, the same dude who said to January 6 people, how dare you? Oh, really, Joey? Because if it's against you that American people are coming for, then you don't get to protest and you don't get to break in. But if it's Georgia, yeah, dude, like go overthrow the government. Yeah. Like this is where they fail American people. These double standards that, yes, we fuel revolutions. Yes, we overthrow other leaders. Like, and then it backfires on us. And that's the tragedy of this country. We just don't get it. And I think the only president that actually got it was President Kennedy. And this is why he said, no, like it's just not going to happen this way anymore. Like we're not going to be, giving power to Israel. We're not going to be like overthrowing people overseas. We're just not going to do this shit anymore. And they killed him. As simple as that.
I do think it's very well established on record that basically everyone, ironically, with the exception of... Oh my God, what the fuck was his name? The guy who took over after Stalin?
Oh, Khrushchev?
Yeah, Khrushchev.
Yeah.
Pretty much everyone in the world, including in our own government, hated John F. Kennedy. And I do agree with you on many fronts that, John F. Kennedy was a normal human. He had his own flaws as a human. Right. But when it came to being a leader and an ideologue, right, he had a lot of amazing ideas that today it would be very hard to put him in a political box with that, which I really like about him. Like he was very... There's no doubt about it that he was so like pro-American standards. Ironically, a scion of like a family that probably got their wealth through ill-gotten gains and everything. But like he found a way to kind of break away into his own lane and talk about crazy things like denuclearizing the world, or maybe we shouldn't just overthrow governments because we can.
Right.
And like these are just insane ideas,
Absolutely. And he was against the war. He was like, he talked, I think the first president, I don't know, we have to check. First and the only president who ever mentioned secret societies and how there is no place for secret societies in a free country and free world.
Yeah.
Like the only president.
Interesting.
Yeah. And I think Khrushchev called him the best president the U.S. ever had or something like that.
That's not helping his case. But I understand that.
Because Khrushchev was crazy.
He did. I'm saying like from a propaganda perspective, doesn't help his case. But, Khrushchev and him had that famous red line that they actually talked on. And they actually had some sort of, I wouldn't call it I wouldn't call it a friendship, but they had an understanding with each other where their relationship, even though their politics were obviously different, they didn't have a hatred for each other, which, that sometimes I wonder how much that contributed to us not blowing up the fucking world.
I agree. And we are there right now. And unfortunately, I don't know. Like, see, this is very interesting. Okay, so have you ever asked why are you like so hostile with Russians? Like, why? Like, you can see it as an American and think, okay, what's up with that? Like, why can't we be friends with Russians? Because they are very similar to us, white Christians. They want freedom. They understand freedom. They are very intelligent, like when it gets to, development, all of that. Mm-hmm. Like, I mean, they were the ones who went to space. We faked the moon landing and all of that. We did.
You think we did?
What if I told you a person who's very credible? Very credible. I can't name the person, but I can tell you behind the scenes, told me that we faked the moon landing, who was like involved in the process. The anonymous
sources thing?
I
can't go with that.
Yeah, you can't. Like unfortunately, I would agree with you as a journalist.
Listen, I'm open-minded. Sometimes it does feel like we throw the baby out with the bathwater, and because we see some things as evil in our government, righteously so, we then have to say, you know what, all of it's a lie. There's not one thing we did. And for me, with the moon landing, my biggest argument against people saying we never did it, I'm not saying we definitely did, but every country in the world, including our closest allies,
right,
in many cases, would have had a reason to try to disprove that we did that, because it was such an achievement on the world stage that they would have been like, we want to do it first. And nobody did.
I would argue that they wouldn't give a fuck.
Why wouldn't they give a fuck?
Because
going to the moon?
Because here's the thing. Like, Soviets, when they went in space, like, yeah, that was great. Like, that was really, really great. So, but why would achievement like that be a threat to them in any way, really? I mean, they can come back and say, so what? Good job. You landed on the moon. We went up in space the first dog, first human. Like,
it's a big deal walking on another object that is not the Earth.
It is a big deal.
It's a big deal.
But I just don't see how it's a threat to them. Like, I just don't see it. To me, it would be great. Like,
it's a great piece of propaganda. It's an amazing piece of propaganda.
Could be. I don't know. Like, I guess I can't see it. I might be very subjective on that, because I wouldn't be able to. Like, I would be, okay, another great achievement for humankind. Like, this is how I would look at it. And
that's how I would look at it too. But you understand that's not how the masses that get fed look at it.
Yes, it could be. It could be. It's just, it's very hard to believe what they are showing as far as like moon landing go, and then you listen to people who have dissected the case, and it's like, I don't know, but then I do trust the person that I talk to, so I don't know. Like, again, I don't know, but I think that this person is correct, so I don't know.
Well, that's the thing about that I always try to check myself with, because my brain, not just the moon landing, but with anything, my brain can go to, it's a lie about something immediately on pretty much everything. Because sometimes I wonder if COVID was, obviously there were aspects of it that were a social experiment, but if part of the social experiment was, ooh, let's break people. Let's break them one way or the other. Either they defend everything and say it's all real, or they say nothing's real at all. You go from fucking Rachel Maddow to Candace Owens, and there's no in between. No in between, right? And so conspiracies are very real. There are many that have been proven. We have one in modern history right now that is the clearest as day thing I've ever seen in my life in Epstein. I just had a guy here who tracked all the phones to the fucking island. I mean, it's real.
It's real.
But then we have other ones that people will claim, and it's not real. And what it does is it in my opinion, is it creates noise. So that if you believe these 10 things, one of them is 100% real and it's bad. Yeah. The people that are in charge of that thing can go, oh, you're going to listen to them? Look at the other 9 things they believe. Right, exactly. And I try to be so careful with that. And what I like about my show, like in doing this, is that I can have on given issues a perspective of you here, and then I can have my friend David Satter here, and you guys have some very different opinions. You both have something in common. You've both been on the ground over there and seen this stuff and understand what it is, and you just have wildly different perspectives. My job isn't to be like, David, you're 100% right, or Elizabeth, you're 100% right. My job is to push back on some things, let you talk on a lot of other stuff, and let everyone else out there kind of decide for themselves and land there. And I would hope that like the nuance gets infected where they go, you know, I don't agree with David on that. He made a terrible case. You know what, Elizabeth, her case on this was good. Her case on that was not good. Maybe, you know what I mean?
And that's exactly what every podcaster, journalist, talk show host should do. Like, let people decide if the case was made here. Yeah. You know, I think that's the right way to do it. And I agree with you on conspiracy theory stuff. Like, it's crazy. I mean, the flat earth and this like stupid stuff. But I think that's exactly why it's there. I think you're right. You said something that I always say. Like, when I start investigating the case, I look at the case and I'm like, okay, what's noise and what's a real thing here, right? Like, that noise allows people to get like completely, I guess they become, you know, how do I say this? Not lost, kind of, but almost like delusional. You know what I mean? And that's exactly what certain forces, I would say, would want. Because if you're delusional, you're not, you know, cohesive. You can't make right decisions. You're absolutely all over the place. And, you know, there are still people who are on the opposite side of things too. Like, for example, there are people who believe that Kennedy was shot by Lee Harvey Oswald, right? To me, they are a special case. They should be, they should be a study case somewhere. Like, it's crazy. But yeah.
Bullets are magic. I don't know if you knew that.
Right.
They are
Of
magic.
course, yeah.
They can really...
We've proven that with everything. We've proven that with Kennedy. We've proven that with Charlie Kirk. We've proven that with everybody, right? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But yeah, it just bothers me, like, how much misinformation there is, like, when it gets to the whole, like, Russia-Ukraine war and whole, in the Soviet Union itself, though. Like, that's another really, like, tough case for me.
Well, let's unpack that. What
Soviet
specifically?
Union?
Yeah. What do you think is, like, the main calling cards of, like, we're wrong about this?
Everything.
The whole thing. The whole thing. So they were fascist, not communist even?
No.
Okay.
I mean, obviously they were
so
communists.
Someone was right.
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
I mean, yes, of course. Like, I'm talking about, they were communists. They were authoritarian. Okay. But I feel like most Americans see it as like communism is like one thing, right? I'm sure you see it too. If I said, like, what was communism? Like, explain to me what was communism in Soviet Union. Explain Soviet Union as an American to me. For, like...
You want me to do that?
Yeah.
Okay, so we already established it was where the government took control of all privatized business.
What government? What government? What government?
The people in charge of the communist government.
Who?
The revolutionaries.
Okay.
Who
well,
took down the family.
They changed multiple times.
Right.
So, how many leaders of Communism Party and in general Soviet Union do you know? How many leaders? Let's count.
It started with the original revolutionaries. You had Lenin, you had Trotsky.
Yes.
And then you went to Stalin. Stalin started the pogroms and the Holodomor, as Andy would say.
Okay, so
and then you had him till 53. Khrushchev comes in 53. After Khrushchev, who the fuck was in there?
So you know more than most, okay?
Yeah.
So, all right, let's unpack that.
And then Gorbachev, obviously,
okay, great. So let's unpack that. Who was Trotsky? Where did he come from? Like, let me break the Soviet myth for you real quick.
The Soviet myth.
Yeah.
All right, break it.
Who was Trotsky? Where was he living before he became this amazing revolutionary who somehow took down the Tsar?
No, he ended up in Mexico.
Yes, he got shot. He got killed. So where was Trotsky? You want to know where he was?
He wasn't in Georgia, was he?
He was here in New York.
Oh, he's in New York.
Yes, he was here in New York. Isn't that shocking? You know what else?
Really.
You know what? Really? You know what else he was doing in New York? So Trotsky was in New York, and he was somehow able to have a chauffeur, like a private driver, refrigerator that was a luxury back in the day, and all this like very well off, like, style items for a person that wrote for a minuscule, weird newspaper once in a while that no one read. Like, doesn't that strike you all?
So you're saying he's a communist who lived in nice opulence. Never heard of that before.
Yeah, well, Trotsky, actually, it's well documented. Read the book Wall Street and Bolshevik Revolution by Anthony Sutton. And another one that did a really good documentation, his name escapes me now, but he's a Swiss historian. So they pretty much track where these communists came from and overthrew Tsar. And it was bought, paid, and funded by the banks in the West. So isn't that funny?
Why would they do that?
Exactly. See, that's the question. I have my theories, but I don't know.
What would be your theory? So let's start with that.
Okay.
So this is not based in fact. This is Elizabeth's theory.
Yeah. So let's start with facts first, and then we can move to the theory, right? Okay. So Bolshevik Revolution and the Wall Street is a great book to start reading, and then I will remember the Swiss historian's name too. So this tracks Trotsky's, it's real fact that Trotsky was living in New York, and he was getting a salary, and he had a chauffeur and a driver, and he had a refrigerator and all of these items, and the question becomes where this guy had the money for all this stuff. Then he goes to conduct a revolution in Russia, and he goes through Canada. He gets caught in Nova Scotia. Again, a fact, okay? We have documentations for it. He gets caught in Nova Scotia with a ton of money. And they're like, where are you going? And then all of a sudden, Canadian authorities get a go-ahead so that he can pass, and they just let him go. So he ends up with Lenin. Who was Lenin, and where was he living? Do you remember? Because he was not
in 1917.
Yeah,
when
before he became revolutionary, before he ever entered Russia. Where was he? Because he was not living in Russia. He was in Switzerland, right? So if I correct, he's in Switzerland. So they sent Lenin and Trotsky the same time to Russia with ton of money. Why? Who are these people? Why do they have so much money? Like they are nobodies when you look at their background, right? And then they start investing this money in communism and Bolshevism, right? So they gather like this like-minded people. This is where later on Stalin joins them. Like he's a nobody in the beginning. Yeah. And that's another thing. Like most people don't even know who Stalin was. And these historians in the West that come out and blubber a bunch of shit. And I'm like, what ground do you have?
What kind of shit do they blubber?
Like a lot of shit about Stalin that is not even remotely right.
Like what?
I mean, do you want me to give you a breakdown of stuff? So, for example,
yeah, give me a breakdown because there's like I have no doubt.
Where was Stalin from?
Let me. He's from Georgia.
Yes.
Let me start with this. I have no doubt that at no point in history, when victors have emerged, will you ever see something where the story told is 100% correct? Doesn't exist. Like I study the American Revolution like the back of my hand.
Agree.
I'm very glad it happened. I'm very glad they did it. These guys were amazing. There's still 10% of things that sometimes do get written down, just not really talked about. Really, that it's like, that was a little fucked up. But like that's war.
Exactly.
So with Stalin, I have no doubt that there could be pieces where they're like, oh, you know, Stalin made it rain in fucking Africa one day. And like, he didn't actually do that.
Yeah.
But we are talking about a guy who is documented. I remember talking about this with the WWII when I had him in here. He's got a great YouTube channel. And he studies this inside and out. We're talking about a guy who is documented to have murdered millions and millions of people. So I don't see any nuance with like, oh, well, was Stalin misunderstood? No, he was a midget who was just very upset about his height.
No. Did you listen to what I said? What did I say?
You said that there's been a lot of lies and propaganda about him. So I'm getting
Which is true.
Right.
So, and what else did I say? Do you know where Trotsky and Lenin lived? You said, I don't know. Where? I told you where. This is a fact. You can look it up. Why don't you look it up where he lived? Like, it is a fact. So this is where, like, when you talk about noise comes in. Was Stalin a dictator? Did he kill people? Yeah, of course he did. But was he everything that West told you he was? Absolutely not.
In what ways?
Many ways. So let's start from here. Do you remember the time when Stalin was Uncle Joe? Really? He was not a murderous dictator then?
Yeah.
When we were helping him?
Right.
Oh, okay. Well, okay. So what changed?
The war ended.
I see. War ended, and then we wanted all these territories that Soviets got, and we wanted to overthrow and dismantle Russia, and all of a sudden he became a bad guy, right?
Right.
Right. So
to be fair though, that was all propaganda. They never liked him behind the scenes. FDR fucking hated him.
So of course they did because
they all thought he was a problem.
Because he was absolutely against the globalist elites, and that's the story that no one tells you. So you don't have good guy and bad guy here. You have bad guys. Okay,
I understand that, Elizabeth, but this is where I got to push back on this. I'm not put aside like Western leaders being all good. They're not. We'll come back to that.
Right.
But like, if Jeffrey Dahmer were against the global elites, I'm not going to sit here and say, you know, Jeffrey was misunderstood.
No, that's not what I'm saying. Like,
if you are murdering millions of people,
that's not what I'm saying.
You're a scumbag. Yeah, I don't know what to tell you.
So, again, like millions of people, exactly how many million? Like millions of people, first of all, the numbers are not there to support it. That's one. The second, you have to understand the guy to talk about him. Like, for example, if you want to talk about Jeffrey Dahmer, I personally can't talk about Jeffrey Dahmer. I know who he was, like, in history, but I don't know. I don't understand the guy. I can't talk about him because I have not reviewed his case.
He was a bad guy.
Great. So was Stalin. No one argues that he was a bad guy. But the question is, when you have bad and the worst for humanity, like, what is your choice exactly? So let's talk about Stalin, shall we? What exactly do you know about Stalin? What exactly do you know?
I've already laid out some of it.
Okay, so where was he born? Georgia. Where?
I don't know in Georgia where.
Okay, how long he stayed there? What was his profession? Like, do you know anything about the guy? Like,
I don't remember. I have studied this in the past off the top of my head, like we're being quizzed in school. I don't remember what he did when he was growing up.
Exactly. So that's where I have problem. Like, no one really does. So I'm like, when I talk to people, they get so upset because they don't have the information. And I'm like,
all right, we'll give it.
Let's give it. So Stalin grew up, by the way, he was not Russian in any shape and form. He was not even Slav. He was Georgian.
He's Georgian.
Yeah. So he was born in Gori, and he wanted to be a priest. So he started he studied to become a priest in a seminary. So his mother was super religious, and she believed in like God, and she was like, crazy religious. She's still buried, by the way, in a pantheon, which is like only for holy people. So in Georgia, and this is the background that people do not know about Stalin. So he's in Georgia till the first marriage, and he has a first kid in Georgia, and then the wife dies because she was ill, and after the pregnancy it kind of got worse and she ended up dying. And this is where Stalin decides, you know what, there must be no God, because he was completely and utterly in love with this woman. And when this tragedy happens, he goes like, F this world. Like, there's nothing to it. Like, I gotta go and find something else for myself, because all these dreams and stuff that he had to become a priest, he wanted to become a priest. He was a poet, by the way. He has a whole book of poetry and all that shit written. And in that poetry, it's so funny. You read like the stuff like my little country that is not free or oppressed because of Russia or something like that. This is the guy who wrote this shit and then becomes the Russian, call it an emperor or dictator, whatever you want to call it, right? So all of this background is completely in trash. No one talks about it in the West. It's extremely important because it determines why he did things he did later on. Don't you think? Like everybody's, my childhood determines why I'm sitting here, right?
I think it's very important.
Very
just
important.
like Hitler getting kicked out of art school.
Right,
like,
exactly.
Fuck those people.
Exactly.
Should have let him in. We would have saved ourselves.
Exactly. So then something very interesting happens. Like, this is what when we talk about communism, I always ask people, which communists? What era? It was all very different. And that's where they're like kind of something, there's like, they get so confused about it. What do you mean? Like communists? Okay, which ones? Because they were all different. Communism in Russia was all different according to who was in charge of them, right? So Lenin and Trotsky, both of them were traitors. They were bought and paid by globalists. That's why Russians hate Trotsky. By the way, his last name was not Trotsky. He was Bronstein. He was a Jewish descent. He bought the last name Trotsky to assimilate with, the Slavic names and Poland and Russia and all that. In reality, he was Jewish. So was Lenin. So both of them come in. They have Western money to conduct the revolution. They killed the Tsar. Do you know which Tsar they killed?
Nicholas
II. Yes. So
Anastasia might have lived.
No, she didn't. She didn't, unfortunately. Do you know how they did it? Like, it was so heartbreaking.
They killed him in a basement. They fucking mowed him down.
Yeah, it was so heartbreaking. And this is
and they were related to the British royal family.
Oh, yes. See, like, it's very rare that someone knows that. Yeah, like they were cousins, and they completely abandoned the king.
Abandoned
him. Like, yeah, I think they were in on it. That's why. So there was no reason to decline him and not accept the Russian royal family in England for safe house. Like the reason they declined him is because Nicholas started saying shit like, we need we need disarmament, we need world peace. That's him. Like, he believed in Renaissance and all that stuff. And you have this ginormous country like Russia with all these resources. You have a leader that's pro-peace and pro-prosperity and Renaissance and all that. And he's like, are you crazy? And they killed the guy and brought the Bolshevik Revolution. And how we know, again, that it was funded by the Western elites, because there was a Red Cross mission going on. Which, again, you can pull up a Red Cross mission if you can find it. Sutton details this in his book. Who was in this Red Cross mission? Why did it happen?
Wait, can you explain the Red Cross mission?
Right, yeah. So they said they needed... people have to understand the Bolsheviks were not that powerful force in the beginning, okay? No one cared for them. Like, they tried, multiple times to conduct a revolution. They failed. They could not conduct a revolution. And turns out they needed more money. So then... Red Cross mission happens in Russia, and the Red Cross was like, when they suggested a mission, Red Cross was like, we don't need a mission in Russia. Like, why are we doing this again? And if you look at who participated in that Red Cross mission, like, it's all either lawyers, like financiers, bankers, and what they were trying to do is use Red Cross mission to funnel shitloads of money for the Bolsheviks so they could finish the revolution. That's what it was about.
None of this part surprises me.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. Like, they brought communism on Russia, and then they lost the control. Exact same scenario like we always do. So, you know, when they lost the control, when Stalin came in power. So Lenin and Trotsky till today is considered as a traitor in Russia. Ask yourself why. Why is he a traitor? Why not why not Stalin? Why not others? Why is Trotsky a traitor? Because he worked for the globalists. That's why. He came from New York, killed their Tsar, gave bunch of gold, by the way. What did communists do? Remember all this Russian gold that was shipped to Europe? Like, why? What, they didn't want money? It's stupid, right? So what happened is Lenin's last words are, anybody but Stalin. Why? See, that's where history goes like completely haywire, right? So anybody but Stalin. Why? Why?
Because he wasn't in on their scheme.
Exactly. He was a random dude from Georgia who had his own devils in the head, and he was not part of this one world order shit. And he looked at it, and I think I know exactly, like, I studied Stalin really well. And I had all the right documents for it because I'm from Georgia. I can read Russian, I can read Georgian, you know what I mean? So, like, I think I know exactly when Stalin learned that this communism, like, he really believed in it, right? He himself. And you can actually determine the time period when he learns what this shit is about. And he realizes that, wait a second, Trotsky and Lenin, they are bought. Like, they are literally these puppets of the globalists. And this might, like, whatever is going on, it might not be real. So this is where he actively starts to kind of take the power, right? And he's like becoming more and more important figure. He does really good. He was a very good negotiator. So every time like there was like some hard stuff to negotiate, they would send him. This is how he advanced in the ranks. Like, who was he? Some Georgian from Gori? Like, are you kidding me? Like, all of a sudden, he became a very important figure. And when he learned that this whole communism was not exactly what he thought, because again, this is why it's important to know a person's childhood. Entire poetry of his is about fairness, about like my country being oppressed. So all of a sudden, communists, what do they say? Everyone's what? Equal, even though that's not true, right? Like, right. But that was the message. So this young guy who leaves because he was upset because his first wife died and leaves the kid with his very religious, by the way, mom to raise. His name was Jacob, actually, not Jacob, but Jacob. And he moves to Russia, and all of this stuff that he always dreamed of, all of a sudden is presented to him as communism. Like, communism can get you all this stuff, right? No royalty, no oppression, no nothing. And he ends up joining the Communist Party, but he ends up joining it because he believes in it. And then he learns that, hold on for a second, much bigger powers are at play here. And in my opinion, and this is my personal opinion, there's no way to prove it, is that he was not okay with this one world thing that was going on, right? Like he was like very patriotic, which he was. So I call Stalin's patriotism as a toxic patriotism, like, because there is such a thing as toxic patriotism. For sure. Right? When you allow everything and everything is acceptable for your country to thrive. Like, not everything is acceptable, right? So when you kind of cross every red line to protect your country, that was Stalin. And he was patriotic at first to Georgia and then to Russia, right? As like Soviet states, so Soviet Republic. So when he learned that, what did Stalin do exactly? Like, when he came in power, what did he do? He started killing who? Imprisoning and then killing who? The same Bolsheviks that conducted the revolution. Why? Why? Ask yourself.
Because we in the West, to your point, look at communism as one thing.
Exactly.
Which is the equivalent of being in the East and looking at Trump and Obama as the same exact person. It makes no sense.
Thank you.
They're just a part of the same system. Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I've had so many people come up to me off camera in the past 6 months, it's making me like terrified. Just taking history
Right.
and saying, oh, there's one thing wrong for it, therefore dump the whole thing out.
No.
That it's like it is actually bothering me, and I thought that's where you were going with him.
Oh,
I
absolutely not.
I will agree with you. So I apologize for jumping on you.
No, you're good.
I will agree with you that the way that things are, what's the word I'm looking for? Homogenized altogether is completely wrong. A lot of it is just propaganda, make it simple for people to digest. There are a lot of nuances here. So the way you just laid out that case is actually very fair in that it's not saying like, hey, these guys aren't evil and these guys aren't evil. No, they all suck, but like here's how it happened.
Exactly.
I understand that.
Exactly.
Yes.
So that's what like is lost on history. And then what contributed to what you said, that every American's like head is filled with like communism is just one thing and so on, is the propaganda that followed of the globalist network against Stalin and all that, because now like two bad guys are fighting for the power, right? So he's a toxic patriot who's like in his head, well, what is this globalist shit going on here, right? Like, am I gonna get anything out of this? Like, is Russia gonna get anything? No. What Russia was supposed to do is got dismantled into parts, right? Like, how would you play Russia in this? Like one world order, like where Russia fits? Nowhere, because it's super complex geopolitically. It has Muslims, it has Christians, it has multiple diversities. Like when it gets to genome and cultures and how they understand themselves. This is why Chechnya is a bomb in Russia, right? And we're not going to go into it because that's a whole another episode. Like
Chechnya is a what?
Bomb.
Is a bomb?
Bomb. Ready to explode.
Oh, okay.
Like not anymore because Putin knew how to deal with it, but it was a bomb and it did explode, right? Like, when Chechen war, the whole thing happened, because it's a Muslim country inside Russia, with all these Christians and above that different cultures in it, right? So Putin dealt with it brilliantly. But again, it's still a threat, right? It's still very different from everything. It's almost like having, not to divert from subject real quick, but why are we so afraid of immigration? It's the same principle. Now you have Muslims in UK praying in entire streets, and UK people are coming out and saying like, whoa, what just happened here? What is going on? Well, guess what? That is a constant reality for Russians when it gets to Chechens, right? And Russia figured out how to make friends between Christians and Muslims in a way that both Chechen soldiers right now and Russian soldiers are fighting for Russia. They are not fighting for, Christianity or Muslim or whatever. They are fighting for their land, which is Russia. And they are equally putting everything they've got into it, right? And they somehow figured this out, that these like differences are no longer quite that distinct anymore. That was, again, Putin. But before that, Chechnya was a huge problem. And so was many other different nationalities, including Georgia, by the way. We were part of Russia as well. So you're dealing with this complex Soviet Union entity. And how is it going to fit in your one world order? And Stalin could see that not only it's not going to fit, they're going to oust me, dismantle Russia, like what they did with Ukraine. By the way, Trotsky was the guy who was saying, you know what? Ukrainians have the right for self-determination. Like this was way before like anything, right? That's where this talk started. And then all of a sudden, like there was propaganda against Georgians too. Like, hey, you're this ancient country. Why are you okay with Russians, like being under Russians? You should have the ambitions to get out, right? What does that mean? You're dismantling Russia from the inside, right? Stalin could see that. And he was like, no, bro, this is not going to work, because that's going to result in me getting ousted as well. And all of this that I'm building here. So this is, I think, where the whole thing went down, like when the Lenins and Stalins, like, clash started, and Lenin didn't want Stalin to take over. He did it anyway. And then what did he do, Julian? Do you remember? Like, there's a word in Georgian and Russian history, we call it intelligentsia. He started killing who? The elites. Why?
Because he thought they were in on it.
Thank you. That was it. So yeah, the entire like history is told in such like ugly way, when there's like actual facts that you can, look at and tell it in the right way. Now, next thing about Stalin is Stalin's second hand was Beria. That was actually Georgian too. That was Beria gets no limelight whatsoever, even though he was the true psychopath of the regime. Okay, Beria was a psychopath. Like he was. I think Stalin's motivation was toxic patriotism. He was right in many things that he did. He was wrong in many things, but Beria was a complete psychopath. So, and again, like, you know, take the war. So World War II happens, and that's another weird thing that I could never understand. So who really won that war? You are educated enough to know this. Like I can see in our conversation that you know the facts.
Meaning
like,
who was most responsible for the war coming to an end? Russia threw the most bodies at it. There's no doubt about that. I think the way I've always looked at it is Russia threw the bodies, through the military, Britain through the intelligence, and the United States through the push coming into it. I think
so.
there was
Would it be
all
fair?
three,
would it be fair to say that the biggest sacrifice was made on the Russian part?
By mathematical numbers, for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I mean, again, like that's everything. Like what Russia didn't throw the intelligence part, or like they just left out on that? No, they did.
No, they did. Yeah. I'm saying who had the most weight of like pulling off crazy shit for each of those.
Exactly.
That's how I describe it. It doesn't mean all three didn't play a role. The United States threw a lot of bodies at the problem too.
Actually, not comparable. Let me explain something.
Not to Russia, but they hold on. Let's not do this.
Okay.
Russia lost way more people. They lost fucking, I don't even remember the number, at Stalingrad alone. It was significant.
I'll tell you what the numbers are.
It was civilians. It was the whole bit.
I'll tell you what the numbers are.
They say, therefore, the United States lost like 1 million people.
No, not million. It's actually very, very simple.
Whatever it was, let's pull it up.
I can tell you 27 million. I can tell you 27 million on Russian part, 200,000 on the U.S. part. I can break this down for you, right?
What were the United States deaths in World War II? You might be right. But that's what I'm saying. When we start getting in the game of like discrediting all of it, 407,000, which I'll call that close enough for the same thing.
So exactly, like, 27 million, right?
But that's what I'm saying. Yes, Russia threw significantly more bodies at the problem, but like we still took losses too. Just like I don't think it's acceptable to say like, oh, just 6 million Jews died in the Holocaust. How about the 3 million Poles? How about the fucking million Romanis?
That's what I'm saying.
That's how I look at it.
Exactly. I also So again, but we remember how we started this podcast compared to what, right? So would it be fair if we were in the same deal right now and let's say I got everything and you got only 10% and then like a very simple thing. Let's say we invented something and I came up with 70% of it and you came up with the rest and you came out and said, well, I'm the winner. Like how? I'm the inventor. No, I'm the inventor. You're the helper. Right? So that's how it is. Now you have to, this is what like people don't understand. It does matter. It matters because when Russians woke up one day, there was no man walking in the street anymore. 27 million they've lost. And what's even worse is that when this war is going on, guess what the elites in the US are doing? Funding Hitler. Yes. And there's a fact.
When the war was going on.
Yes, when the war was going on.
We know about before the war. No. But when the war was going on,
I'll tell you that. Do you want even shocking thing? When the US got into war, they continued funding Hitler.
How so?
Union Bank, if we had like your
Joe will be back in a minute. I'll pull it up.
Union Bank. Look up Union Bank and Prescott Bush. They continued funding Hitler and the FBI had to, actually the government issued, seized the assets of the bank under enemy of the, Yes.
I know about that.
Yeah. So now think about this for a second. So for the Russians at Soviet Union, who gave up 27 million men, and then there is this propaganda somehow equalizing the effort here, whether it's Brits, who, by the way, Churchill says, it's his words, I can't quote exact quote, but he said something like, let the Russians do the groundwork, let them do the war. Like, okay, so we did do the war, right? Like meaning Georgia, Russia, and all these people. My great-grandfather died in that war. So like I said, it's not the same. I'm sorry, but it's not the same. If anyone really fought that war, was Soviet Union, and they lost everything for it. Everything for it. Yes, Britain helped. Yes, Allied forces helped. U.S. elites, not the U.S. people. By the way, U.S. people were the most honorable in this war, not the elites. Elites funded Hitler up until the very end, until the the government had to seize their assets. Like, what is that exactly? What kind of, you know what I mean?
Real quick.
Yeah.
Yes, Prescott Bush was a scumbag.
Yes.
And yes, there are
Somehow
people like
his
him
son
that
became
existed.
a president.
Yes, somehow. And somehow the grandson became the president. Yes, Alan Dulles was a scumbag who spent the entire war in Bern, Switzerland. Very interesting address to have during the war. Yes, there are people like that were that case. But when we start saying and generalizing, it's the same sin as when people generalize all Russians or something, and throw it in with Putin.
Who's generalizing?
Hold on. Let me make this point.
Okay.
When you generalize that,
right,
and you therefore say the entire United States, you are insinuating, but hold on, when you say the elites, all of them, they were funding Hitler. They were funding Hitler the whole time. 99.99% of them in the United States were not. Prescott Bush should have been put on trial for treason, found guilty by a jury of his peers, and executed. I don't even believe in the death penalty, but I'd make an exception right there.
I agree.
That is one guy.
No,
there
it's
were
not one guy.
There were a handful of other people.
Yes.
But to then make that insinuation that therefore the entire United States government, which is what that argument gets to, it's like a slippery slope. Therefore, they all supported it. I know that's not what you said, but you have to understand when you say the elites, you said something like the elites, they were all funding Hitler.
No.
That's not the case.
Okay, so Davidson, Bush, and all these people are the same elites that drive the government and drove the government later. How do you think? You asked the great question. Like, okay, so his son and grandson became president. How exactly? If it's just one guy and all the other ones are so innocent, like they are stupid or something? Like, how exactly did Bush do that? Explain to me. Who was Atchison? Who was Alan Dulles? Who was Avril Harriman, who was a magnet, by the way? You know who else funded Hitler? Avril Harriman. Because he was a partner with Bush. So explain to me, if it was just one guy, how did he get away with not going to prison and getting executed? Because I'll tell you something right now. If I was that one guy and I secretly funded Hitler while my country, I would, like, they would slit my throat. Like, rest of them. Why didn't they do that?
Because he's a powerful guy in a powerful position.
Just one guy is the powerful guy and rest of them are not?
No.
Yeah, exactly.
There is a handful of them that do that, and then they find their way into powerful positions, and they're scum.
And then we have to argue how many then. And you can't argue exactly what number there is, Julian, because you don't know. And neither do I. But what I know is that an entity that gets away while my country is in the war, gets away with funding Hitler, is a very damn powerful force and is protected by very, very many people up on top, because otherwise it cannot do what it does and get away and then have a descendant, two of them, as the president of the United States.
The descendants is a major, major issue, and I completely agree with that.
Yes.
I think it is far more likely that when you have a victory like that with the Allied forces in this way, and something like Hitler was stopped, Japan was stopped too, you just go through years and years of everyone losing a lot of people, this insane war, everyone's on edge around the world, and now it's over. Mm-hmm. What you don't want is nuance in any way.
Exactly.
You want to make sure that, and this is the point I'm really trying to make.
Right.
You want to make sure that 100% of the narrative is on your side, which is exactly what I was saying 15 minutes ago. When you look at any war, there is always, for the victors, if they were in the right overall, there is always that 10% where they did some bad shit. When you win, that gets covered up. I am not saying that's right, by the way. I think it's completely wrong that Prescott Bush was allowed to continue being Prescott Bush. I think it's wrong that his fucking sperm.
But you just said the plot, right? So how are you overthrowing the head, like the president of the United States, without having a backup plan? So it's not just one guy. You just mentioned the plot. And Smedley Butler named a ton of them. And the names were like not released. Why? So who made that decision? You're talking about banking industry. Who else made that decision? So no, I'm sorry, it was not just the one guy. Because one guy didn't approach a freaking general to say, why don't we overthrow Roosevelt tomorrow and make this a Nazi dictatorship? Okay, he's a mental case. He's going to end up in hospital if that's one guy. He's not a one guy. And that's what thinking that way got us here. Now we are under these guys. You know this better than I do because you've been in the US. You grew up in the US, way longer than I have. So now we are under this one guy, all this like shadowy government, and we can't do shit about it. Because the first time they did something like that, we said, oh, it's just a one guy. Don't pay attention to it. It was not a one guy. And that's my beef.
It is absolutely, in the context of the situation, a handful of people. Like I was saying, it's not just one guy.
It's actually multiple families.
But I'm saying when you generalize it to be like, therefore the entire government was supporting.
No, I said, hold up.
You said the elites. I'm sorry.
Yes,
elites. When you say all the elites were supporting Hitler, they weren't. There were some that were.
Yeah, I didn't say all the elites. We can go back. But I said the elites, which is true. Then the government, by the way, I never count government in the elite. So let's make that distinction, okay? So to me, government is absolutely, completely different player here. Really, you would think that Donald Trump is part of the elites? I would argue he's not. Like who's really, like, you can't count the government into the elites. Government is manipulated by the elites. We would agree on that. But would you say that Donald Trump is part of the elites? No, right? That's why we voted for him. We got him in the office to clean the house. And so that this would not happen. So let's make that differentiation. We can't just say elites. Okay, that's another thing that kills me. Elites. Okay, who? I can name my sources and I can tell you the investigations I've done. Davidsons, for example, that never get mentioned. Truby Davidson that literally single-handedly created the Navy Reserve that America didn't have. What the heck was Truby Davidson's job to do so? It was not. But he made his job because he needed a control over military. It's a whole rabbit hole that, we can go down to, but we can't just say, much to your point, just the elites. No. The government is a different entity. The bankers are different. And they are, by the way, some of them are not even American. Okay, let's start from here. So when I say that the elite forces, which is true, multiple, not just one, funded Hitler, again, true. They did. So then, now put yourself for a second in Russian shoes. For a second. You lost 27 million men against this madman. And then you find out, which they know, by the way, that the US elites, which are bankers and the people who then drive the government and all this machine, funded this madman that killed 27 million of your people. Like, sit on that for a second, how that feels. And then...
You'd be pissed.
You'd be pissed.
I think that the same...
But
Elizabeth, I think the same things that have happened with propagandizing us to believe 100% truth and stuff that is not,
right,
is now being thrown completely in the opposite direction, carefully and deliberately, to turn us in on ourselves, to assume
I agree with that.
Now, I have a lot of problems with like the elite class, obviously.
Right.
I try to look at things on a case-by-case basis. So when I hear generalizations on things that make huge claims that can, whether or not it's your intention or not, but that can be taken as like, therefore, like the elites just in general, we're all supporting Hitler.
I never said all were supporting Hitler.
But
like we talked
said,
about this.
I understand that. But you said like the line was the elites were supporting Hitler. Are we going to talk about that? Like that was the line.
Right.
And I don't like being a literalist. I don't like picking apart words and whatever. But we're living in a world now where people are suddenly like saying things like, you know what, actually, Hitler wasn't the bad guy in World War II. It was really Churchill. It's like, dude. I'm not saying Winston Churchill was a perfect guy. Far from it. We could certainly go down that.
We can agree.
But like we can't. It sometimes feels like we are in a vortex now, post-COVID, to believe the polar opposite on everything, and it
Why
really.
is that the polar opposite? I don't understand.
What do you mean?
At
Why
all.
is
Like,
that? So one narrative is that Hitler was the worst thing ever. He was the only worst thing ever right there. Everyone had to kill everything
Okay, I
in
don't
sight.
know where you get these narratives. That's not my narrative.
No,
like,
hold on. I'm saying the general public narrative right now.
Okay.
This is not your narrative.
Okay.
I'm saying this is what the narrative has been in
All
public.
right.
The world had to stop him and all that, and anything that happened on the way there,
right,
or once we had to get to that point,
right,
or once we had to do it, was absolutely fine.
Right.
That was one narrative.
Right.
That's not 100% right.
I don't agree with that.
Right? He was a very bad guy. That part's right. But like there were a lot of other things that went into it. By the way, including, I just want to lay out this so that we can people can understand where I'm coming from. The other narrative that's now forming is literally the opposite of that. Right. And it's literally saying, maybe he had a point. And it's like, dude, I don't know why we can't hold multiple thoughts at the same time. So I get really, and I'll admit it, and I'm sure people are going to let me know in the comments, and that's absolutely fine. That's why we do this show. We cover all perspectives here. Thank you guys for checking out this clip. If you haven't already subscribed, please subscribe and hit the like button on this video. It is a huge, huge help. And if you'd like to check out this clip's full podcast episode, that link is in the description below or right here. And finally, you can follow me on Instagram and X by using the links in my description below.